living life, every day, late at night, not okay. All I want, and I pray, all I need are some better days.
Hey guys, Keith Engel for Let's Talk Sports. Let's Talk Sport, New York Sports Show. Sorry guys. Keith Engel here for Dan Harris. Dan's still in recovery mode and hopefully getting better. We wish Dan all the best, and hopefully he'll be back with us sooner than later. We didn't do a show last week, so we apologize. I was laid up myself. Actually, I probably didn't do a show the last 2 weeks. I think. Can't remember now. Time's fleeting for me. But I was laid up with COVID last week, so I know we did not do a show. So I apologize for not bringing any content to you guys, but we'll be here to talk all the New York sports teams today. And we'll take your comments if you're here and wanting to share. We'll certainly jump into anything you want to talk about, New York sports related, or we do cover the the New England Patriots as well. Who's with us? Alan's with us. Good evening, Alan. Alan, put a post up, Alan, and I'll share it so people can see when they view this. Alan's one of the latest additions to Dan's Let's Talk Sports family. He's got his own show that he'll be doing weekly. I believe you can fill us in if you want, Alan. Maybe give us the days and times that you'll be airing, and we'll be happy to do that. And I'll be sharing it on my Let's Talk Sports, my TGI Sports Talk page as well. I think between Wednesday and my shows this morning, my show, the Are You Serious show, and the Mac and Jack show, and doing a Major League update, and my vlog, which I just sent off to Dan, and will also be on Let's Talk Sports later on today. I'm starting to lose my voice, so I apologize, and hopefully we can make it through the hour here in good shape. Let's start in the NFL if we can. Listen, and I talk about this all the time. I do this Let's Talk Sports, New York Sports Show with Dan. I'm a New York sports fan, except when it comes to football. I'm a New England Patriots fan, not a New York Jets or Giants fan, but certainly follow those teams very closely and feel I have a pretty good pulse of what's going on there. And it's funny, there are two teams that I hate that I've got to continuously defend to many, many fans of the team, as far as whether they're improving and the direction that they're taking. Both of these teams, guys, are two of the biggest surprises in the NFL today. The Jets are a half game out, be it in the loss column, game in the loss column, which is important. To behind Buffalo in the AFC East, they're 6-3 after getting whooped by the Patriots a week before and looking horrendous, including Zach Wilson looking horrendous. They played a great game, a perfect game to beat Buffalo this week. They're growing. There are growing pains when you're growing. You've got a young quarterback who's 21 years old, and you can't just pull the plug on this guy after, whatever he's played now, 20 games, 24 games. I mean, if you'd done that with some other great quarterbacks in history, you would have never had Hall of Fame careers from Terry Bradshaw, Joe Montana. I've done this before. Troy Aikman. I'll keep going. Give him some time to grow, and he is showing you. He played last week. Were his numbers stellar? No, he won. That's what matters for NFL quarterbacks. You can win in the NFL. Herm Edwards said, you play to win the games. The Jets are doing very, very well. What is not to like about the growth this team has made? We'll get it, and we'll get into Daniel Jones in a little bit. This team played really well last week. And Zach Wilson's numbers overall, where's his numbers? 57% completions, 4 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. His passing rating is 75. Not great. I get it. But the team's winning. The running game's been effective. Breece Hall being lost for the season is a big loss for the Jets. Obviously, Michael Carter's played pretty well. The passing game though is growing. Wilson to Wilson is becoming a real thing. Garrett Wilson's now got 42 catches for 525 yards or 521 yards and 2 touchdowns. He's getting better every week. The connection between Wilson and Wilson is getting better every week. You know, and they also got Corey Davis. They had Tyler Conklin, who had a really good game last week as well. Elijah Moore, who's been a bit of a disappointment with his attitude and his production this year. I like the kid. And if they ever try to decide to trade him, I hope they consider the Patriots. But Azuma's been a good addition at tight end. So Conklin and Azuma have been a good combination at tight end. This team has gotten better. This team is in position to make the playoffs. This entire AFC division may make the playoffs this year. It's not out of the realm of possibility. Nobody should think that's possible. Not possible. How the Jets going to do the rest of the way out? They're going to New England. They got a bye week this week. The Giants had their bye this past week. So they're going to come out of a bye, go to New England. I'm going to say they lose. Patriots are also off this week. I'll say they lose that game. They beat Chicago. Let's say they lose to Minnesota. They lose to Buffalo at Buffalo. They beat Detroit. They beat Jacksonville. That's 9 wins right there. They've already had 9 wins. Told you before the season they'd be 9-8. You'd have been very happy. 9 wins will probably get them in the playoffs. And I think they'll win one of the games at Seattle or Miami to close out the season. Now, if that doesn't happen and they go 8-9, this isn't, you don't feel bad because of the place you're at now, but it's still been a huge step forward for this team. Confidence, learning how to win games. Look where they are compared to, say, the Jaguars. They're probably a year ahead of the Jaguars. Where they shouldn't be. They should have been pretty much on the same timeline with the quarterbacks that were taken and when they were taken. Some of the other key players coming out of the last couple of drafts. The coach, they've got a little bit of a head start on, but I'm certainly not sold that Robert Saleh is a better coach than Doug Peterson. But the Jaguars have played really good football, but haven't learned how to win. They've scored more points than they've given up. The Jets are probably a year ahead of the Jaguars, where they should probably be the same place. I think this team wins 9 or 10 games. And again, I think it's possible all the AFC East teams get in. It's certainly possible. Let's take a look at some of the other news around the Jets. Let me take a quick look here. You know, they're taking their bye week seriously. They're not, really getting too comfortable with time off. They've got a job to do. They've got a goal now. They don't want to settle for that 8-win season and showing market improvement. They want to be in the playoffs, and they want to be there now. And I think this would really, really be a good step forward here for the Jets to be a year ahead. I said next year this team would be very tough, potentially in the playoffs, and we'll see if that's true. Before I move on, let me pull up a couple comments. Alan said he posted in the Community of Sports page, which he's an admin on, by the way. Very good group. If you don't belong to the Community of Sports, please look into them and enjoy it. It's a good group. I will certainly share from there, Alan. And same for Dan. If he sees us, I'll mention it to him if we chat. Hello, Augustin. Boy, I can't say your name. Why is that? Dolphins go 12-5. Bills 11-6. Pats, Jets 10-7. I'll give you that. The Pats. Since we're talking about the AFC East, let's stick with the Patriots for a second. And let's look at their schedule, shall we? So I've got the Jets at 9 or 10. You got them at 10. I won't disagree with that. I do not think the Bills are going to be behind the Dolphins. I don't think. Dolphins have surprised me. Tua surprised me. Might be an MVP candidate. Surprised the hell out of me. All right, here's the Patriots. Already 5-4. They beat the Jets 6-4. At the Vikings, we got to call that a loss, 6-5. At home against the Bills, I'm going to say they beat them 7-5. At the Cardinals, 8-5. At the Raiders, 9-5. Bengals at home, 10. Dolphins at home, 11. Lose at the Bills. So even if I say, all right, we're going to lose maybe to the Bills twice, I got 10 wins. And again, I think 9-8 gets in. Look at the rest of the league. I think 9-8 gets in. So even with your predictions, Alan, I think the whole AFC East gets in. Patriots are getting better. Mac Jones is struggling a little bit. They had a nice win against the hapless Colts. The offense was not good. The biggest disappointment, the defense is playing lights out. Matthew Judon is potentially the NFL defensive MVP. I know Alan's going to tell me Micah Parsons is better, but he's not. If he wins, wouldn't put up an argument. Micah Parsons is a great player. But Matthew Judon, if he continues what he's doing, I mean, he is wrecking plays series after series, week after week. The defense has played really well. They got to keep it up. Now they're starting to not limit his snaps, but you get a closer hold on the snaps that he plays, so he doesn't wear down. Last year he wore down in the second half, and it wasn't terribly pretty. The Patriots' defense wasn't pretty, and that front seven is important to this defense, obviously, as it is to any. But there's not a player playing better on the defensive side of football than Matthew Judon. And the cornerbacks are playing well. The young, every Jones, I can't even keep all the Jones kids straight. So the defense has been good and set up the offense. The disappointment on the offense, the running game's been tremendous. Ramondre Stevenson has turned into the player, and I said when they drafted him, I love the kid. When I watched him in preseason last year, and I saw this guy went from looking like Robert Newhouse to being svelte and still be able to run over guys, that he was going to be an animal. And he's really had some good games, and he's been very, very good this year. Now he's getting more ingrained in the passing game. This team is going to be competitive in this AFC East for the rest of the year, and they're going to be in contention for the playoffs. Now, maybe they do win 9 games, as Alan said. They could win as many as 11. Either way, they're going to win a wild card, I think. The disappointing part of this team so far, Mac Jones has regressed a bit, but to be expected. He's been injured. He's learning a new offense. I do think that offense is starting to click with some of the rest of the people on offense, and the play calling from Matt Patricia, I think, has been better and more imaginative. And they're putting starting to get Mac Jones in better positions to succeed. The offensive line is still a little iffy. Even Cole Strange, who didn't have a penalty like through the first 6 games, he's been taken out the last 2 games. He got taken out after 2 series last week. Only came back for a cameo later on. Not good. Isaiah Wynn has been awful. They haven't protected the quarterback well, and Mac Jones hasn't taken good care of the football or made good decisions as often as he did last year. And the red zone offense has been atrocious. Atrocious. Nick Folk, I mean, he may lead the league in points. I'm not really sure. I'd have to look, but my God, they're just not scoring touchdowns inside the red zone ever. So they got to get better. What do we got here? I know Alan has something about Judon. Disagree 100% with that comment. There's no way Parsons has a bigger impact than Matthew Judon on this defense and on the games he's played. I've watched every play. I know you've probably done the same with Dallas, Alan, so we can debate this. We can say they're as good. Do not tell me. There's no way you're going to tell me, unless you've watched every play of every Patriot game, that Matthew Judon is not as big an impact, had as big an impact, both on the defense he plays on and in the games that he's involved in. You need to watch the plays he blows up series after series to really appreciate what he's done. And Micah Parsons may be doing the same thing. So you can tell me that he's as good, but unless you've watched both, and I'll admit to you I have not, but there is zero way I'm going to sit here without you telling me you've seen every single play Matthew Judon's done to say, I can't say definitively he's had a bigger impact. I can say nobody could have had a bigger impact than Matthew Judon. So I'll tell you, Micah Parsons could be just as impactful. He's a great player. This is nothing against Micah Parsons. I think he's tremendous. But please don't dismiss Micah Parsons, or don't dismiss Judon out of your loyalty bias. Micah Parsons is a great player. I don't get to see him or don't see him play after play, but I can tell you there is no way. There's no way that he's been more impactful. Listen, and you want to say about the players he's made better? The Patriots, Bentley is a tremendous, much better player with him around it. Barmore is a much better player with him around it. Dietrich Wise is a much better player because of Matthew Judon. Also had an effect on the defensive backs. Like I said, with the pressure on the quarterbacks, the defensive backs have become turnover machines. That was a big question mark to cornerbacks but the pressure on the quarterbacks have helped the young cornerbacks make a bigger impact. So I'm not going to disagree with you, but don't worry about how I pronounce these guys' names, please. Jesus, good God. More Smith and Jones. Sorry, Alan. Got an attitude today. Oh my God. Not your fault, buddy. Lost my screen. Where was I? Let's move on to the Giants. It's already 2:18. Let's move on to the Giants. What happened to my freaking screen? Man. Giants 6-2, tied with the Cowboys, and I know we'll probably get into it here a little bit with Alan, because he's going to tell me what a much better team the Cowboys are. Talent-wise, yeah. The quarterback's better, but he hasn't played better than Daniel Jones in big moments. Daniel Jones has played big in big moments all year long. And unfortunately, I have to watch the Giants every week because it's the market I live in. He has no impact receivers to help him out at all. Zero. Saquon Barkley has been tremendous. The Giants 6-2, as the fat bastard Bill Parcells always said, you are what your record says you are. And this team has been getting better and better all the time. You are being biased. 1 and 1A is fine. I will say they have to be as good. Again, have you watched every Patriot game? Because I'm telling you right now, I haven't seen Micah Parsons play every single down. But I've literally seen Matthew Judon play every single down the last 2 years. And last year, he was very good. This year, he's unworldly. He blows up plays right and left. Well, playing only 3 games doesn't have anything to do with how well you play. Too many people look at numbers. I don't look at numbers. I test, always. I test. Daniel Jones gets ripped in these parts and everywhere because he was drafted number 6 by the Giants way too soon out of Duke. If he'd been a late second round pick, the people in New York would be in love with Daniel Jones today. They would love the progress that he's made because he's playing as good as any quarterback in the NFL right now. He can't carry a team on his back. He doesn't have weapons. He's got less weapons than Dak has. He's got less weapons than Zach Wilson has. He's got less weapons than freaking Trevor Lawrence has. But he keeps winning. And I have to defend this guy. Giant fans hate him. They're 6-2, guys. 6-2. Saquon Barkley's playing tremendous football. Him and Jones have carried that offense because there's nobody else. They've either gotten hurt or they've come up small. There's nobody else in that offense helping them out. The defense is really good. So the Giants are going to win. The Giants are going to go to the playoffs. I know Alan and I think both picked them to finish second in this division, I think. Dak doesn't have to do much anymore. He's finally started to realize that Elliott Pollard duo keeps him going. I want to see. So my MVP right now is Barkley. He has carried that team, man. But Jones has as well. Jones has led 3 fourth-quarter comebacks for the Giants this year. Giants are favored this week, I think, for the first time all year against the Texans. Good team to come back from your bye week. Let's see. How can we expect the Giants to do the rest of the way out? Let's look at their record. They're 6-2. They got the Texans and the Lions the next 2 weeks. The Giants are going to be 8-2. Then it gets tougher. We got the division games really kicking in. You got the Cowboys. You got the team formerly known as the Redskins. You got the Eagles. You got the Washington again. They got at the Vikings. Colts at home at the Eagles. It gets tough. Let's just say they win the next 2 games, 8-2. I'll give you a loss in Dallas, 8-3. I'm going to say they beat the Commanders at home. That's 9-3, so you're already at 9 wins. 9 wins is making the playoffs in the NFC probably as well. Let's say they lose to the Eagles at home, 9-4. Lose to the Commanders at Washington, 9-5. Lose to the Vikings, 9-6. They beat the Colts, 10 wins. They lose to the Eagles, 10-7. 9-8 is what I predicted for them. Now that 10-7 I just predicted could be 9-8. Could also be 12-5. I'm sorry, it could also be 11-6. I don't think they get to 12. Giant fans should be very happy with the progress this team has made. What do you got here, Alan? You picked them third. I think they got swept by Philly, swept by Washington, maybe. Interesting, you have the Eagles sweep of them, but not the Cowboys. That's still going to get them, even if they get swept by those 2 teams. So that's 4 losses, 5 losses on top of the 2 I just had at 7. That's 10-7. That's still 10-7 if they win the other games. I don't think they win at Minnesota, though. I think they'll split with Washington. So I think somewhere in there, though, it'll be 10. It'll be 10. I think it'll be 10 wins. Hello, Pickles. How are you? The Eagles will flutter to the ground before the end of the season. I do think that the Eagles will flutter this weekend. I think this is a spot where 8-0, you start looking at the schedule. It's not looking that tough. It's pretty soft going forward, except for the division games. And I think this is a spot where the Eagles should be careful. The team formerly known as the Redskins are playing better football with Taylor Heinicke in there. The defense starting to play better. They've got some players at skill positions that can play this game. And Ron Rivera is a damn good football coach. I got into it with Jack Hirsch a little this morning. I said he's done a great job there with all the distractions around that team. I still think that. I'm not going to change that. So, Eagles 15-2. Wow. Cowboys 11-6. Giants 10-7. We're on the same page there. I think the Commanders will be 9-8. And again, 9-8 may be good enough. You may see these four teams get in the playoffs. Look around the league at the rest of the records are atrocious. It's possible both the Eastern divisions get four teams in the playoffs, and then all you have are the division winners from the others getting in. Not likely, but certainly possible. How you doing there, Pickles? Good to have you on our Let's Talk New York Sports show today. He's not filling in, but I'm usually joined by Dan Harris as my co-host. And as we know, Dan is still in recovery mode, but making progress by all accounts, and we hope to have Dan back with us very, very soon. So that's kind of the football part of the show. I want to jump in. I want to get into a little bit of NBA with the Knicks and the Nets. We'll talk a little Yankees and Mets before we go. A little bit Syracuse football maybe, and that'll wrap up our New York day. So where are the Knicks? Oh my God, Knicks got off to a decent start. They were 3-1. Since then, they're 2-5. You know, this team, Julius Randle is playing better. His attitude is better. He's playing more like the player from 2020 than the player from last year. Brunson's made a good difference. Barrett starting to get it together. I still think Barrett is on the cusp of being a superstar. Hartenson's been a decent addition from the Clippers. Toppin is playing more. What I'm not happy with is Fournier is still terrible. And I don't understand why Thibodeau's buried Quentin Grimes on the bench. Quentin Grimes needs to play more. He needs to get more minutes over Fournier. And the Knicks have got to find a way to rid themselves of Fournier. He's just been an anchor around their necks since he's come in here. You know, this team, I think, is good enough to finish in the top six in the East. I mean, they're only a game now behind the Wizards, who are 6-6. At worst, they finish in the play-in round of this game. The NBA playoffs. Finish around 500 at worst. Get into the play-in part. At best, I think this is a 50-win team. Brunson's good enough to have made these changes. They saw firsthand the other night when they played Cleveland, you know, Donovan Mitchell was the guy that got away. And that sucks. I said Leon Rose had to figure out a way to get this trade done to prove that he could make this type of trade. Is it perfect would it have been perfect for the Knicks? No. Because Mitchell's challenged defensively. Brunson's challenged defensively. You know, when playing Barrett and Brunson and Mitchell would have been a problem, but it just ticks me off. Where are we here? We got some comments I didn't pick up on. They put the fire out. I made bail. Vols won. I don't know what that's all about, but I'm happy for you, Pickles. New York sports and forget the Bills. Oh, I forget the Bills. Gosh, the only team in New York. Oh, see, that's how Dan wouldn't let me forget the Bills. The Bills are the Bills. The Bills are playing really good. Allen, I'll back up for a second. So Josh Allen, who knows if he's going to play this week? You hear various reports that he's got a serious arm injury. We hear reports that it's not as serious as it looked. There's a decent chance he doesn't play this week. I've got him in 2 fantasy leagues, so I need him to play, but I'd like to know he isn't. I don't really care if he plays. I just like to know before game time. If I'm the Giants, if I'm the Bills, I may sit him this week against the Vikings. If they were to lose this game at home, it's not the end of the world. It's not a conference game. They still got a game in hand in the loss column to the Dolphins and the Bills or the Jets. And I would sit Josh Allen. The Bills are still the class of this division, as I think I said. So we did talk a little about the Bills, by the way, and that's not a lot. The lack of a running game outside of Josh Allen is still a problem, but they've got so many weapons for Josh Allen to go to. As long as he's not seriously hurt, this team is still the prohibitive favorite in the AFC in my mind. The AFC still comes down to Buffalo and Kansas City. The defense is better. Von Miller's been a good influence on that defense. This last Jet game notwithstanding. Listen, the Jets are an improved team. Anybody in the NFL can lose at any point in time. So there's your Bills talk for today. We'll go back to basketball after this. Thanks for calling me out there, Alan. Pickles doubts Allen plays this week. I got a feeling he won't play either. Again, if you got to sit somebody and you've got a little bit of a cushion, losing a non-conference game is not going to hurt them that much. And there's my mail. Sorry, distracted. So that's the move I would make. Bills do have injuries on both sides of the ball. They've been playing with injuries on defense most of the year. And look at injuries. You can't get wrapped up in injuries either because everybody has injuries. You know, we're heading into week 10. Everybody has injuries. You either deal with them or you don't. And good teams find a way to the next man steps in and they play as well as they can. And the teams work around it. So, you know, anybody who throws injuries, and I'm not saying you are, Pickles, because I don't think you're a Bills fan anyway. But you got, and that's part of the problem in the NFL today is the depth is not there. So some teams are just crushed by injuries and others are not. The Bills have enough depth to overcome the injuries that they have. They might even be able to win at home against the Vikings with Case Keenum at quarterback. It's possible. Case Keenum's a capable backup, not somebody I want carrying my team, as the Broncos found out when he left the Vikings. He led the Vikings to the playoffs a few years back, if you remember. I think it was the year that they shocked the Saints late in the game, going to Stephon Diggs. So, but you know, I don't want Case Keenum playing for an extended period of time, but he's a capable guy and can potentially even win this game at home against the Vikings. Yeah, at least for a week. Again, Case Keenum is going to get exposed if you play him week after week. This is a good spot to sit Buffalo or sit Allen. Who they play? Hang on a second. Let's see who they play after the Vikings. Come on, I can't get to their schedule. Hold on. Hard to believe I missed the only team that actually plays in New York. They got the Browns after that. They got the Lions after that. I guess you could sit Josh Allen the next 3 weeks and probably win 2 of these 3 games easily. They could lose to the Vikings. Wouldn't be the end of the world. They'll probably beat the Browns and the Lions with Case Keenum at quarterback. You're right about Cousins. Cousins does fold. Mostly night games. As long as the lights aren't on, he's dangerous. But he does fold in big games. How big a game is this for the Vikings? Doesn't really matter that much to them either. Other than credibility. You know, as far as standing wise, again, they lose a non-conference game on the road. It's not the end of the world. They're 7-1. Kirk Cousins has played well. He needs to work on those dance moves, though, man. Jeepers, creepers, pickles. What's up with that? Oh man. All right, so I covered the Bills. Sorry about that, Alan. It's funny, my little notes, I never wrote them down at all. So back to the NBA. The Knicks, I think, will be okay. The Knicks are in a bit of a slump right now, but I think they'll come around. I think Brunson has really showed that he's a good player. I think he needs Tibbs needs to get the kids more involved, especially Quentin Grimes, and I think they can right the ship there. The Nets, on the other hand, are a dumpster fire. I don't even know where to start. I mean, who thought? Where's their record? Well, they played a little better, got themselves up to 5-7. But who thought it was going to be a good idea for Kevin Durant to say, trade me, then Kevin Durant to say, okay, don't trade me, but fire the coach and the GM and I'll come back. Then they don't do any of that, and Durant comes back anyway. They allow Kyrie to come back and pick up his option because he couldn't get the money anywhere else. So he wasn't going to opt out. And how do they think this wouldn't become the dumpster fire that it is? Nash has already been fired. Marks will be the next guy out. Kyrie is a cancer wherever he goes. He's such a talented guy, but the man has some issues, man. I don't want to sit here and talk lightly of mental illness because it's a real thing and it's a dangerous thing to ignore, and I don't want to make light of it. But there's something wrong with Kyrie Irving. I mean, if he's not a racist based on his most recent controversy, if he's not a racist, then he's stupid or nuts. One or the other. And when you add it all up to with the other stuff, he needed, a week off for emotional reasons after the January 6th issues at the Capitol. He thinks the world is flat. Again, I have to say this, and I say it on every show. Kyrie, I'll pick you up. You can pick the direction you want to go. I'll drive you as far as you want to go, and we will not drive off the end of the earth. Not a guy you can trust. Last year, he wouldn't get vaccinated. Couldn't play in half the games. Now, I don't care what your opinion is on vaccinations. I don't care. But if your employer plays in a state, and if I'm the Nets, I would have moved them last year. Goodbye. Sometimes in life, you need to suck it up and do things you don't want to do because your job requires it. Not NBA players, apparently. They don't live in the real world. And Kyrie Irving, as good a player as he is not worth the trouble. Kevin Durant's still one of the top 5 players in the game when he's healthy. But he's saddled with a team, and he did this to himself. He decided to come here. He decided he wanted Kyrie here. They basically signed off on Nash to be the coach instead of bringing in a real coach. But then Kevin Durant wants to point fingers everywhere else. He's as much responsible for this dumpster fire as anybody else. They are wandering in the desert, Pickles. You're absolutely right. It's a great analogy, man. They are lost. They don't have leadership. in the front office, on the court. Kevin Durant, who I used to think was a great leader, I really did, as well as being a great player, has shown a lack of leadership the last 2 years. You basically created the issues that were here. Harden forced his way out because he didn't want to play with Kyrie. Couldn't stand the fact that he was playing half the games last year. And it was you, Kevin Durant, that wanted him here. And you wanted a coach. But then when it wasn't working out, get rid of them all. If you want me, get rid of them all. Players did get Nash fired. I thought Nash did a really good job in the first year, the COVID year, because he only had like those three guys together 9 games. And the team finished, I believe, second in the East, if I remember right, Pickles. I don't remember for sure, but I think they finished second in the East. And when they were this close to going to the NBA Finals, Kevin Durant, a 2-pointer that would have been a 3-pointer by that much of his toe, losing to the eventual champion Bucks. And I thought Nash did a great job that year. And again, handpicked by all accounts by Kevin Durant and Harden. But then they throw him under the bus. As soon as things start going bad last year, it's Nash, it's Nash, it's Nash. Well, it's the entire team and the organization putting up with Kyrie's nonsense, number one. James Harden forces his way out. Oh, and I didn't even mention Ben Simmons. So this team's like devoid of talent outside of Kyrie, who's now suspended, of course, and Kevin Durant. It's a bunch of role players besides them. And Ben Simmons, who's talented, but he won't shoot. He's hurt, or he won't. When he does play, he won't shoot. Kyrie's a tumor that must be exercised. God. I don't even think that's strong enough, Pickles, right? His work ethic is nil. His sense of responsibility to the team is nil as well. It's all about Kyrie. This whole thing, with the ethnic slurs and backing this movie, all he got to do is keep his mouth shut and be a team player. He knew what this was going to do. He's not stupid. He might be crazy, but he's not stupid. What the Duke? Could be the Lakers. Lakers might have more upside. The Lakers might have more upside. What are they, 2-10 now, by the way? Sorry, 2-9. How do they think that was going to be better? Let's bring everybody back and get a new coach. You're right. I'm not a psychiatrist or psychologist, Pickles, but I think you're absolutely right. I think he is a passive-aggressive personality. I think he wants to assert without being assertive, right? Without anybody being able to point a finger at him. He wants to manipulate situations, but he doesn't want to be left holding the bag. Well, he left himself out there holding the bag on this whole thing, because he's the one who demanded a trade last year. He's the one who demanded the coach that he wanted to come in here, get fired, or I won't come back. He's the one that just came back to play for that same coach and then helps get him fired. Well, I shouldn't say he helps get him fired. His numbers are great. Another nutcase, right? And listen, I feel bad. I mean, again, I know I don't mean to be offensive and offend people that struggle, again, with mental health issues. But there's something wrong with Kyrie. I mean, doesn't know right from wrong. Ben Simmons has got some kind of disorder that doesn't allow him to exert himself and fully exhibit the talents that he has on the court. Because he's afraid of failure, maybe. I don't know. I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist, but there is something wrong here. Maybe he needs a mental health coach. Well, Kyrie's benched now because he's suspended, and as far as I'm concerned, he ought to be suspended for the entire year, and he ought to be kicked out of the NBA. Oh, by the way, on top of all of this other nonsense, the Nets, when they fire Nash, are going after Udoka from the Celtics, who's suspended by the Celtics for the year because of sexual harassment charges and inappropriate contact with female members of the front office. How did you think that was going to end? First of all, he's a property of another team, even though he's suspended. Second of all, he comes with all this baggage. I don't care that he's a great coach, and I said when he got suspended, he wouldn't coach in the league again. And I don't think he will. Not in today's atmosphere. All you got to do is check the way the wind's blowing. The Nets going after him was a horrible public relations move as well. Jacque Vaughn is by all accounts, a good guy. Had a chance to coach in Orlando, didn't do a great job. He's a stand-up guy. He's stuck with a mess now. I'm glad he got a head coaching job, but he's stuck with a mess in Brooklyn. Agree. I do agree. I don't think, you don't have, the best player on a team doesn't have to necessarily be the leader, but it helps. And when there's a leadership void, which there is on the Nets, there is nobody to pick up that mantle. So Durant needed to do it. And as Pickles said, he's incapable of doing it. And this team is going nowhere. Why would management think this team was going to go anywhere with the issues they had last year and finishing in the play-in round? And then the issues that came up in the offseason with Kyrie and Durant after Harden had forced a trade last year during the year to Philadelphia and bringing in Simmons. How did they think this was going to be this is our way to go forward? They should have blown it up. John Smoltz, good example. Sports psychologist, mental health coach, sorry. I didn't mean to use the wrong terminology, but I don't know. Let's move on. Right now, basketball in New York is a nightmare. We'll talk some college basketball in New York in coming weeks where we have the opportunity. I do like I think St. John's going to have a good team this year. I think Iona with Rick Pitino will be a factor in the MAC again this year. I'll get to see them play when they come up here to Albany to play Siena. Seton Hall with Holloway as their new coach, who took St. Peter's to the Elite Eight last year, is in for a little bit of a rough ride at Seton Hall, but it's something to watch for. And we'll keep an eye on some of the other teams. Syracuse is going to have a tough year probably this year. Jim Boeheim, moving the ACC was the worst thing that ever happened to Syracuse. And we'll talk about Syracuse football maybe in a little bit. Let's move on and talk about the Yankees and the Mets a little quickly. We talked a little bit on the Are You Serious show this morning. I talked about it in my MLB update, which you'll see on Let's Talk Sports at some point when Dan is up to getting it up on the board. The Yankees are in a situation right now where they've got to make some major decisions. They need to decide what to do with Aaron Judge, which to me there's only one choice, and that's bring him back at any cost. They need to make decisions at shortstop. They need to decide whether, and to me, if you went with Connor Falafa last year because you didn't want to sign a free agent because you thought the kids were only a year or so away, there's no reason to dive into the free agent market this year because then you're admitting you made the wrong decision last year. The kids, by all accounts, are ready to play now. They've shown at AAA that they're not going to get better playing AAA ball. It's time to find out if they can play. And you can't do that and bring in a shortstop from this free agent market. So I play one of the kids at shortstop in the spring. I find out which one's a better one, Peraza or Velope. Move Donaldson out of third base. Maybe Cabrera's my third baseman. Or maybe I bring in somebody else. Got to fill a hole in left field. Maybe Cabrera's a left fielder. Or maybe they try to bring Benintendi back, who's a free agent. I mean, as a Yankee fan, I would love to see an outfield of Benintendi, Bader, and Judge. Great defensive outfield. Benintendi and Bader bring some interesting dynamic to the offense. You saw what Bader could do late in the season and in the playoffs. One of the few guys who really stepped up in the playoffs. You need to re-sign Rizzo in my mind. Rizzo wants to come back. He opted out, but he wants to come back. He wants to obviously have a shot at a multi-year deal, which is fair. He brings a lot of leadership to this team. He's a field general out there at first base. He makes that infield better. So I want to see him come back. And then they got to make some decisions on the pitching staff. They exercise their option on Severino. So you've got Cole, Nestor, Severino, your top three. Taillon is likely going to be gone. He's a free agent. I don't think they're going to bring him back. I do think that you might see Schmidt get a shot at the starting rotation next year, but I think you'll see another starting pitcher get brought in here, at least one. And then you got Frankie Montas, who knows what he's got. You know, is New York too big for him? We'll find out. And then you got the bullpen where you got to decide what to do about the closer situation. Chapman's going to be history. Holmes, you know, was he a flash in the pan that first half of the year, or is he the real deal at the end of games? I like Loaizaga, but I don't want to pigeonhole him into that closer role. I'd rather see him continue to come in high leverage situations wherever it is in the game. So the Yankees with some decisions to make there. What we got here? Alan, like I said this morning, Yankees need to get Turner. I don't think they need to get Turner. They need to keep Judge. Again, if they go after a shortstop, Alan, then they wasted entire last year. They could have got a shortstop last year. Their decision to play Kiner Falefa was because they were wanting to wait for the kids. Well, what are you going to do with the kids if you sign Turner long term? Now, you could sign Turner and move one of the kids to second base, or move Turner to second base and trade Torres for pitching. That's an option. But I'm not sure the Yankees are going to go after a shortstop, a big name shortstop. I think they're going to give these kids a chance. So again, if they decide they want to trade Gleyber Torres, then maybe Turner or one of these other shortstops becomes a possibility, but I'm not sold that that's the way they're going to go. If they do, then we wasted this whole entire last year, but waiting for the kids. Alan just saw a ticket saying the Mets may bring back Michael Conforto and the Yankees are eyeing another outfielder. Well, the Yankees have to eye another outfielder because they don't have a left fielder right now. Other than Cabrera, which, again, I would prefer to see him maybe be the third baseman next year. Conforto, good player. Another guy who kind of shot himself in the foot. You know, ended up making no money last year. It's going to be interesting to see what Conforto were to sign for. And if the Mets lose Nemo, you may see Michael Conforto back in Flushing, because they're going to need that left-handed bat. I hope they don't let Nemo go. I like Nemo. Good defensive player. I like his approach at the plate. Got a little pop. And if he were to go to the Rockies, and Alan, I know you mentioned their interest in Nemo. He would be a superstar. He starts playing his games in that state core stadium. Dansby Swanson, I like his game. I love it. But again, the Yankees stated plan last year, the reason they didn't chase Correa last year was because they wanted to wait for the kids. The kids did not underperform in the minors as they moved up to higher levels. They played very, very good baseball, and they're ready to. It's time to find out if they can play on the big stage. So unless you want to move one of them to second base and move Torres, there is no room for Swanson. There is no room for Turner. So I don't think the Yankees are going to go that way. I really don't. I like Swanson a lot. You might see Swanson in you might see a trade. You might see the Braves sign Bogaerts, and can I say it one more time? And the Red Sox sign Swanson. Because I don't think they're going to move Trevor Story back to shortstop in Boston. I think his days as a shortstop are over. Ticker. Whatever. I don't get hung up on that. The Mets got some tough decisions to make, too. We got a couple minutes left here only. The Mets got some tough decisions to make, too. Jacob deGrom has opted out. Bassett's opted out and not likely to return. I mean, there's a lot of there's going to be a lot of teams interested in him, and he may be better off outside of New York anyway. So the Mets have to decide what to do with deGrom. I'm not offering him. The problem with deGrom is he's probably going to want 4 years. Maybe he'll want 5. I'm not giving that to him with his injury issues. It's not the $40 million he's going to want. It's the length of the contract. If he wants to sign a 2-year contract, I'd even give him an opt-out. Show you're healthy. Man, New Yorker says, what about 1? Well, they're not going to sign him for 1 because he's going to have other opportunities. He's probably going to have opportunities that are longer than 2 years. I really think deGrom will probably end up out west. So now the Mets have got to really address their rotation, right? Because they not only lose deGrom, likely lose Bassett, but Carrasco and Walker, who are decent major league pitchers, also have injury issues to be concerned about. Swanson wants to stay with the Braves. The Braves may feel, though, because you saw this with Freeman, the Braves may feel that there's an upgrade with Bogaerts, a small one, but his numbers are better. If you want to just look at numbers, I think Swanson's been an integral part of that team and grown up with that team, and I think the Braves would be wise to probably try to keep him around. I don't know if I go to 3 years, unless you're going to give me an option, the team an option. I'm not, which he's not going to do. I'm not sure if I go to 3 years. Somebody's gonna, Pickles. Somebody's gonna. I just don't know if it'll be the Mets. And it's a little bit different situation than Judge. I don't think it's integral that the Mets sign deGrom. He's 34 years old. He's had arm issues. You know, as much money as Steve Cohen has, I don't think he wants to just piss away, $120 million. No, the Braves won't pay Swanson. I understand. But they're going to pay Bogaerts. So it really makes no sense. The numbers aren't that much better. And they're looking at it over an extended period of time. Probably if you looked at it over the last couple of years, as Swanson's improved offensively. So you may see a trade, not a trade, but you may see the players trade teams. You may see Swanson in Fenway. Well, you'd have to have options. For even with a 2-year deal, there's going to be a player option most likely, and probably a team. I don't know that deGrom's going to give the team an option. He loses his guaranteed money that way. So, guys, we're going to wrap it up today. Thanks for participating here, Alan. Sorry I got so uptight with you there earlier. I just Been a bad day. I'm going to go have a beer. Pickles, thanks for coming in and participating in our New York Sports Hour here. Dan Harris, we hope to have you back with us very, very soon. You've been a great friend, and I've enjoyed doing this show with you on Friday afternoons, and I hope to have you back here in the saddle with me very shortly. Keith Engel for Let's Talk Sports right here on the Let's Talk Sports Network. Check out TGI Sports Talk for all my content, and most of it will tick you off, but we'll have fun.